Boys, in the last class, we had studied till the two differences between the Congress Socialist and the Communist. Today, we begin with the trade union activities in India, and we should study that in Bombay and Calcutta, these were the two places where there were many industries, textile, jute, and tea industries, and they had maximum working class population. But the living conditions of these workers were not very good. The working as well as the living conditions of these workers were not very good. They were miserable. They worked for 15 to 16 hours, maybe sometimes 18 hours a day. We are talking and studying about trade union activities mentioned on page number 8 of the lesson. There were many individuals who tried to work for the improvement of these working class people or the improvement of the living conditions of these working class, and there was one person known as Shashi Pada Banerjee, a radical Brahmo who founded a working men's club and published a journal, the Bharat Shramjeevi or Indian Worker in 1874. You know that this is the way they tried to make the workers aware of their rights and to demand for the improvement of their condition, maybe the reduction of the working hours or the living conditions to be improved. But these were small level bodies, or they were small level initiative taken by certain people. They were not doing anything for trade union formation. In Bombay, N.M. Lokhande started the first Teen Bandhu, a weekly, in 1880 and founded the Bombay Mill Hands Association in 1899. These associations no doubt were started, but they were not trade unions in modern sense. The first trade union was Madras Labour Union, founded in April 1918 by B.P. Wadia. Please mark this first trade union movement, founded by B.P. Wadia in 1918, known as Madras Labour Union. And there were many people who were associated with it, like Mrs. Annie Besant, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. They all led a strike of workers in 1918 at Ahmedabad. Then in 1920, Mahatma Gandhi formed the Mazdoor Mahajan. And this body wanted that there should be good relations between the workers and the employers. That's how only when there were good relations between the two could the employers understand the problems of the workers and solve them, and the workers could have a better relationship with the employers, and the working would go on in a smooth way. Trade union, now we could see that there was trade union movement slowly taking shape. In 1919-20, the industrial strikes took place at various places, that is Kanpur, Calcutta, Bombay, Madras, etc. And a number of workers, where these strikes took place, there were many workers who participated in these strikes. And now when the workers got involved in these strikes, it was now felt that they should have a trade union or an all India organization that could work for the workers. And accordingly, the All India Trade Union Congress, that is AITUC, please write it, AITUC, the full form of it is All India Trade Union Congress. Right over there, important for ISC, was formed in Bombay in 1927. Lala Lajpat Rai was the person to preside over the inaugural session, and this session was attended by many nationalist leaders like Motilal Nehru, C.F. Andrews, B.P. Wadia, Annie Besant, etc. Now, along with this happening, or while this was happening in 1929-30, if you remember in class 11, you had studied about the Great Depression, which was having its effect on our country. And a number of factories were closed down and the workers had lost their jobs. If you today compare today's position, also due to the lockdown, there are many workers who have no work, they have no job, they were depending on daily income, plus most of the industries are shut, so there is no work for them because of the lockdown. So that is also a sort of a depression, economic depression, that is being faced by many countries, including ours. But at that time, when the Great Depression took place in France or in Germany or in USA, the economy of the countries were no doubt affected and the workers lost their jobs. In the meantime, there were many ups and downs in trade union movement. Because of the Great Depression also, there were ups and downs in the movement, and there was a split in the All India Trade Union Congress. The communists also left the AITUC and formed the Red Trade Union Congress. So that was a split because of the effect of the depression on different countries as well as our country. There was some difference of opinion between the members of the Congress, All India Trade Union Congress, and it led to a split. And the communists left the Congress and they formed their own Red Trade Union Congress. Finally, when there was a split, it weakened the trade union movements, and there was attempt made by the leftists and the socialists to unite the workers and the peasant organization for collective movement. So that was a negative part of the split, that there were differences of opinion between the members. Then the communists left the Congress and formed its own trade union Congress, and then there were attempts made by various leaders to bring together the peasants as well as the workers in order to have a collective movement for the betterment of the workers and the peasants. Then we have the Kisan Sabha movement. The next heading on page number 9 is Kisan Sabha movement. There was excessive burden of taxation, fear of eviction by the farmers, no occupancy right, that is, the farmers had no rights to own the land, rise in prices, and there were rise in prices of essential commodities. The landlords were torturing the farmers, and the government was passive. It saw the problems, but it kept quiet. And that led to the peasants or the workers to revolt against the authority. When they saw that the authority was keeping quiet, it was not doing anything for their problem, not solving their problems, because they were unburdened with heavy taxation. They had that fear of their lands, their being evicted from the land. They had no ownership of the land on which they cultivated. They had to face high price rise of essential commodities. The landlords were torturing the farmers, the workers, the peasants, and the government was not doing anything. And finally, that led to the peasants to revolt against the authority. So there were a number of peasant revolts taking place in various parts of India between 1920s and 30s. Even the non-cooperation movement that had started in 1921, it also encouraged the peasants to revolt against the British government. And slowly the peasant movement was spreading to different states of India, and the movement somewhere like in Uttar Pradesh became violent, and the police fired on them, killing a number of peasant demonstrators on the spot. During the 1930s, the peasants also revolted in different provinces, and the Congress also called for no tax movement in UP, and no tax campaign spread to other provinces of India, because the Congress made a call for no taxation. Like you remember, there was a call, no taxation, no representation. So the Congress demanded no taxation, and that slogan of the Congress, or that objective of the Congress, started spreading to different other provinces or states of India. But the need for one central organization was now felt by the socialists as well as the communists, because you could not have local organizations or local bodies to work for the farmers. They still needed one body that could have representatives from all the parts of India, and that body could work for the peasants all over the country. This urge led to the formation of the All India Kisan Sabha. Mark that, All India Kisan Sabha, AIKS, and write it down in your notebook if you are listening to this video. And in 1936, under Swami Sahajanand Saraswati, N.G. Range, Narendra Dev, Indulal Yagnik, and Bankim Mukherjee, this AIKS, or All India Kisan Sabha, was formed. These were some of the prominent leaders of this Sabha. Now, the first session of the Sabha met in Lucknow in 1936. That was the first conference, and the objectives of the Sabha were declared in this conference. I will read those objectives. You can note down those objectives of the first All India Kisan Sabha held at Lucknow in 1936. The first objective, as stated, is to free the peasants from all forms of economic exploitation. That is, you know that they were exploited by the zamindar. Abolition of zamindari system. No more should there be zamindars controlling the land and making the workers work for them. Distribution of land to the landless peasants. The peasants, the farmers who did not have land, should be given land. Cancellation of all debts. Whichever loan or debt was there taken by the farmers should be cancelled, and afford irrigational facilities to the peasants for improvement of agriculture. It was also decided that they would demand from the government that there should be some provision for irrigation for the farmers so that they could improve their agriculture. The Congress leaders also needed the support of the farmers, the peasants, in this struggle. Without their support, how could they work for the betterment? Now, the leaders of the Congress very well knew what were the various problems that were faced by the peasants. But the right-wing leaders of the Congress were not very happy with this Kisan Sabha because of its demand of the abolition of zamindari system. Whenever the peasants revolted against the landlords, the Congress leaders tried to stop them, because they were not favoring this abolition of zamindari system, and so whenever the farmers tried to revolt against the zamindars, the Congress leaders who were not in favor of this objective tried to stop the farmers. But the Kisan leadership, Kisan Sabha leadership, had full faith in the Congress and its role for the liberation of the country. No, though the Congress leaders, the right wing, was not very much supportive of the objectives of the Kisan Sabha, but the Kisan Sabha was very much hopeful that the Congress was going to support them and the Congress would play a great role in the liberation of the country. This was the basic issue that led to differences between the Congress leaders and the peasant leadership. Because of the various objectives that were put forth by the Kisan Sabha, the right-wing Congress leaders were not very happy with those proposals or objectives, and that finally led to differences between the two sections, that is the peasants as well as the Congress leaders. Finally, we come to the topic growth of communalism. Another important development that took place during that time was communal feelings, the hatred towards the other communities, the Muslims not able to tolerate or favor the Hindus, and the Hindus were not able to tolerate the Muslims. But actually, these feelings were more encouraged by some leaders. The Government of India Act of 1935 had provided for provincial autonomy, and there were elections held, and that showed that the Congress had swept the polls. It had more majority than the Muslim League. The Muslim League performed very badly in the elections. And this confronted the League and the Congress. They made the results made the Congress and the League confront each other with different message. From the results, we could make out that the Hindus had supported the Congress, but the Muslim League failed to represent itself as the spokesperson or spokesman of the Muslim community because of the results. And it was very clear that now the Muslim League needed to come more close to the urban lower middle class. They felt that that section of the society was not favoring the Muslim. And now the Muslim League, in order to gain that support of the lower middle class, gave the call, a cry of Islam in danger and the threat from Hindu Raj. And this, when they raised this slogan, that created hatred of the Muslims against the Hindus and other religions. Muhammad Ali Jinnah and the Muslim League declared that the real aim of the Congress was to establish a Hindu Raj, and that would be against the Muslim minorities. That's how they created fear and created hatred among the Muslims against the Congress, against the Hindus. This was the only way that the leaders, Muhammad Ali Jinnah and the Muslim League, could create Hindu-Muslim division. The prospect of a possible Hindu Raj created a fear in the Muslim mind. Muhammad Ali Jinnah talked about a two-nation theory, and he said that his religion, Islam, was in danger, and the Congress was trying to establish a Hindu Raj, and this brought fear in the minds of the Muslims. And that led the Muslims to demand for a separate homeland where the Muslims could live and practice their own faith. This demand of Pakistan was inevitably raised by the politics of fear and hatred created by the Muslim League in 1937. At the Lahore session of 23rd March 1940, Jinnah came up with his two-nation theory, and he gave his own reasons why there should be two nations, one for Hindus and one for the Muslims. He said that the Hindus and Muslims were two nations, and economically, politically, socially and culturally they were different people, Hindus and Muslims, and under all these aspects or these fields were different. So the Muslims in India should have a separate sovereign state for themselves. And then the Muslim League passed the famous Lahore Resolution demanding an independent state for the Muslims, because the Hindus and the Muslims were two different nations. That was the theory that was propagated by Muhammad Ali Jinnah in his Muslim League session of 1940, where they passed a resolution. As a result of this, communalism began to emerge as an organized mass force. The people were now divided on communal lines, the Hindus and the Muslims. On the other side, Hindu communalists appealed to religion like their Muslim counterpart. Muhammad Madan Mohan Malviya's place was taken by leaders V.D. Savarkar of Hindu Mahasabha and M.S. Golwalkar of the Rashtriya Swayam Sevak Sangh. They took up, Golwalkar wrote a book called B, and that became the manifesto of Hindu communalism. Just because the Muslims were making their people have hatred and against the Hindus or the Hindu communalists also appealed to their people that they should separate themselves from the Muslim. They also declared that the Hindus were the only nation living in India and the Muslims should leave or live as second class citizens in their own country. So now you could see that communalism was not only spread by the Muslim League or Muhammad Ali Jinnah, but the Hindu communalists were also trying to propagate these feelings among their Hindu people. This was the Hindu communalist version of the two-nation theory. That is, the Muslims should leave India and go. This nation is for the Hindus. And if they live in India, if the Muslims live in India, they should live as second-grade citizens. They condemned the National Congress and the Hindu communists, for supporting our most inveterate enemies. They call the Muslims as their enemies. In this way, the political and social atmosphere became vicious, and 1940s became the most crucial phase of both Hindu and Muslim communalism. So this is the chapter that is talking about the last phase towards independence, how there was Kisan movement, how there was rise of socialist ideas among the leaders, why there was trade union movements, what was the role of the Congress in the trade union movements, why did the peasants revolt against the British authorities, and what led to communalism or the growth of communalism in India. So this ends the first chapter of section A of Indian history, and there are many questions which are given at the back of the lesson. I would read out at least 10 important questions. So you please open your notebooks and note down those 10 questions. I will read out the first question. Mention names of two Congress leaders who had socialist leanings. I repeat, mention the name of two Congress leaders who had socialist leaning. In which session of the Congress Jawaharlal Nehru elaborated his socialist ideas? Who was M.N. Roy? Where was the first Communist Party of India formed outside the country? What was the name of the party founded by Subhash Chandra Bose? Who founded Bombay Mill Hands Association and when? Who founded Bombay Mill Hands Association and when? Who founded the Majur Mahajan organization? Who founded the Majur Mahajan organization? Next important question is, please write down, what was the full form of AITUC? When was it formed? Next question, who formed the Red Trade Union Federation and when? Who formed the Red Trade Union Federation and when? Next question. What was the full form of AIKS? Next question. What were the causes that led to the peasant uprising in 1920s and 1930s? Next question. Discuss the main objectives of the Kisan Sabha movement. Discuss the main objectives of the Kisan Sabha movement. And last question. What was the two-nation theory as preached by M.A. Jinnah? What was the two-nation theory as preached by M.A. Jinnah? So these are a set of questions that you have to write in your notebooks and will submit that to me when the school reopens. This will be taken as your project work. So I hope you have understood the question. If you have any doubts regarding any topic, you can note down those doubts, and when the school will reopen, we shall clear those doubts. So children, all the best for the time being. Take care of yourself, be safe, and God bless you.